On the night of April the 27th, 1945 in Berlin, fires raged out of control as the intense and savage Russian artillery bombardment crept closer to the center of the Third Reich. Deep in his bunker, the man who had brought such destruction to his country and indeed the world knew that the war was over. The Führer's options were limited. He could allow himself to be captured by the advancing Russians, but the humiliation was unthinkable. He could kill himself, but who could possibly replace him? Or he could try and escape and live to fight another day.
Many people believe that he survived. The reason being that no body was ever found. And so basically that left the door wide open for all of the conspiracy theories.
If Hitler survived, yes, it's perfectly possible he may have fled to Argentina, but he would have had to have stayed hidden for a number of years in order to achieve that. I think that therefore in the immediate aftermath of the war, I think he probably would have tried to escape either to the Alps, and in which case he may have had a good chance of getting down perhaps to the Middle East.
I think this is a man who is extremely determined, and he would have had an exit strategy before he even began. He wouldn't have been in Berlin if he didn't know how he could get out.
The Russians themselves thought he escaped, and they're the ones who ended up trying to identify the bodies. There's witnesses that said, we helped him escape. There's pilots that went, well, I flew him out of there. And it's all been ignored because the agreed story is the story that everyone wants to believe. We want to know the war stopped, he died, that was it.
According to a new book, Grey Wolf, The Escape of Adolf Hitler, Hitler, his wife Eva Braun, and a handful of close aides and top-ranking Nazis did escape, using a network of secret tunnels from the Führer bunker in Berlin. Its author is Gerard Williams, a former reporter for the Reuters news agency, and he agreed to meet me in Paris.
So, Gerard, did Adolf Hitler die in his bunker in Berlin in 1945, or did he survive?
There's no forensic evidence whatsoever to suggest that Adolf Hitler or Eva Braun died in the bunker in Berlin in 1945. There is a huge amount of contemporaneous reporting to say that Adolf Hitler escaped and made it eventually to Argentina, where he lived, according to our research, until 1962. People often think that that's complete idiocy, conspiracy theory, whatever. I've been a journalist a very long time, Jamie, and I went back to look at the contemporaneous reporting from organisations like the BBC, the Associated Press, Reuters, all of whom at the time quote Stalin as saying that Hitler has escaped to Spain or Argentina. Time magazine has detailed accounts of the bunker, the escape route from the Reich Chancellery, from Hitler's private quarters in the Reich Chancellery. This is published in Time. Newsweek carried details of how it could have happened. And then in 1947, in a Polish court, Captain Peter Baumgart of the secretive KG-200 Luftwaffe group describes how he flew him out from a temporary airfield on the Hohenzollern, which is a huge boulevard in Berlin.
For a long time, the Russians believed that the Allies were sheltering Hitler, and they put about these fake stories as part of a disinformation campaign in an attempt to flush out what they thought to be the truth. In July 1945, the Russian commander, Marshal Georgy Zhukov, claimed that since Hitler's body had still not been found, he could have flown away at the very last moment. Even General Eisenhower, the former Allied Supreme Commander, appeared to be taken in. In 1952, he said, "We've been unable to unearth one bit of tangible evidence of Hitler's death. Many people believed that he escaped from Berlin."
The Russians were at first quite happy to accept that Hitler had died, but then there became very quickly emerging a narrative that the Soviets were thinking, hang on a minute, do we really want to go around saying that Hitler's dead? Does it not suit our propaganda purposes to make it look as though Hitler's escaped and in some way may have fallen into the arms of the Allies who are now sheltering him? Of course, there was massive distrust against the Soviets and the Western Allies. And so, as a result, there was a huge disinformation battle being played on both sides, largely and successfully by the Soviets, to spread uncertainty about whether Hitler had died or not.
Most historians balk at the idea of Hitler and Eva Braun escaping from the bunker. They say that they committed suicide in Berlin in the final days of the war, perhaps even the final hours. And many view Gerard Williams's version of events with extreme skepticism.
I think it's absolute rubbish. When I first came across this book a few years ago, I dismissed it as being 2,000% junk. I've now revised my opinion. It's 3,000% junk. I have no opinion as to whether Gerard Williams believes his story or not. If he does, then I think he's a fool, because the testimony and the evidence for Hitler's death is absolutely compelling. And I don't really know why he would want to sell a book that flew in the face of what is well-researched, well-proven, credible history.
We don't know it all, and we make this quite clear in the book. Parts of the escape route are scenario, parts of a complete fact, but they're the scenarios that work best with what is available to the Nazis at the time. They have U-boats available to them. We have reports from the Argentine police and the Argentine Coast Guards of U-boats being off Argentina at the time. Reports from the FBI of people being landed in Argentina at the time. So although it's impossible to say exactly that, yes, they came on Group Seawolf on these U-boats, we know that the Americans said those U-boats were sunk, and we know they weren't sunk. We know that one of them turned up and surrendered at Mar del Plata a month later.
There are countless reports in FBI files, in British files, that will say that, oh, Hitler was a monk in Spain. Hitler's been seen in the Canary Islands. Hitler's been seen landing in a U-boat, yawn that old one. Hitler's been seen in Greenland. I mean, these are all just nonsense. I think that the naivety of an author to pick up an FBI file and treat it with reverence just because it's an FBI file is astonishing.
It is one of the great mysteries of the last century. What did happen to Adolf Hitler? Most historians agree that he killed himself at the end of the Second World War and his body was burnt to avoid any relics. But of course, without any remains, there is no conclusive proof. So, maybe he did plan and execute one final daring mission and escape to Argentina. I'll see you next time.